and help us out here. Thanks, Miss Wilder, for you being here as well, playing for us. Good to see everybody here today, and we're going to do something. Brother Robert Lube, are you out there somewhere? There you are. So I don't know if a couple of guys could help him, but we want everybody to take one of these. This is just a kind of a card about our college group, and the idea is everybody in here probably or might run into, just take one, and if you run into a tech student that's coming into town, that just, people run into them all the time. You could hand that to them and say, hey, won't you come visit us? We got a pretty active college connection group, and we've in fact got a welcome Sunday next Sunday. There's some information here on it, and they can scan the QR code and find out more about our church. We're just trying to, probably every Sunday school class is passing these out so people will have one. And if you think of somebody, you happen to run into somebody or know of somebody that came into town or is going to college, maybe they're already in town, just hand that to them, and we're going to try to give the group a little exposure so we can get it known a little bit. And we had a good last year was a very good start to that group, and I think this year it'll really grow. So if you'd help us with that, we'd appreciate it so much. I think the Lord would bless our efforts there. And if you don't run into anybody, you can still read about it and find out about it. But we're going to take that approach. So thanks, guys, for your help. Let's get started today. There we go. Whoops. So this is the title I take from the same verse I took the title from last week, and we're going to get into that when we get into the lesson here in Genesis in just a little bit. I'm going to start, though, with some comments about Russia and Ukraine. So I greeted you. I really didn't get to everybody like on this side or maybe everybody over here, but I managed to get, I think, through that quadrant right there, that sector, and a few here. And I ran out of time. And Brother Gerald, I appreciate him so much, but it was a short song with 3 short verses. And so, I kind of just ran out of time and didn't get to everybody. But in the few people that I shook hands with, Russia was brought up several times. So what's going to happen with that? And I thought today I would just speak quickly, 2 or 3 slides on the thing, and you might say, is it prophetical? Is it biblical? I'm going to show you the spiritual impact of this thing. We talked about it when Putin first invaded. We talked about it. And I just want to remind you a couple of things with regard to the spiritual aspects of this war. If somebody says, what is the effect of why do we care about the Russia-Ukraine war? Why do we care? And I'm going to show you that before we get too far into this. As far as what's actually happening, it's difficult to know, isn't it? We don't know what came out necessarily of all the meetings. The last word I got was yesterday from Epoch Times put out an article. By the way, thanks for your help on that. And I've so the next step looks to be apparently is Zelensky is coming to Washington to talk, and then Trump's going to try to set up a talk between Putin and Zelensky. Whether he said he might be in that or not, it depends on how it goes. But that's sort of the next step on this thing. I do not think we can know much more about that in the future. I think Putin is unpredictable. And Zelensky's unpredictable. And so we don't know. I'm going to remind you of just a couple of things. This thing started in February, really, of 2014. Russia Putin just went down and annexed Crimea. Obama was president at the time. Nobody said a word, hardly. We mentioned it, but nobody seemed to care. They just kind of took over. Crimea was Russian speaking, and some people grumble, but kind of find out there's quite a few folks in Ukraine on that eastern side near Crimea that are called separatists. In other words, they wanted to separate from Ukraine, go back to Russia, and Russia has been supporting them since that 2014 timeline. And then, of course, in 2022, he invaded, the full-scale invasion. And I just want to mention here something I talked about a few times over the years, but God gave us a free will. God gave Putin a free will. Even if we're saved, God does not dictate our efforts. We decide, if we're going to come to church today or if we're not or whatever. And yet, so man's got a free will. But God can still accomplish his purpose, whether or not, no matter what man does, God can still accomplish his purpose. And there's an example of that embedded in this, in that God prophesied through Ezekiel that he was going to scatter the Jews, and he did. And then he said, I'm going to gather them. I'm going to gather them, and by the time that the Lord comes, there's going to be quite a good gathering of the Jews. And so God said, well, God didn't tell me his exact quote, but since Russia's invaded Ukraine, Jews probably going to be unsettled like everybody else. And sure enough, at least 100,000 Jews have immigrated, most of those back to Israel. So many Jews Israel is a small country. So many Jews were coming back from that conflict. They had to close the immigration office for a little while and just get their feet on the ground. People were coming in everywhere, they couldn't keep up. And so one of the things God has done through this conflict is brought more of the Jews home to Israel. So far, in this thing, I just give you the next two slides are just for your information. I just thought you might be, just so we keep up a little bit. 1.5 million people killed or wounded. This shows on each side, there's about twice as many affected from Russia than Ukraine. Russia is just really, their strategy is throw these guys at it. Just throw them out there and fight, and they're the aggressor, and so they're paying a price in their people. Total number, so that's the deaths here, Ukraine and Russia. That's the total number removed from combat, 950,000 from Russia, about 400,000 Ukraine. Now, I got these online, so if it's not exactly right, but the civilians, you can see the casualties here, deaths and injuries in Ukraine is significant, much less compared to Russia. Even though Ukraine has struck back a little bit, there's been very little civilian damage in Russia. So just remember that. I thought you might be interested in looking at some other wars and see how many people lost their lives in some other conflicts that we're all aware of. So that's so far, and we're not done yet. 1.5. By the way, this thing's been going for what do we say? 3.5 years, about 3.5 years. And you multiply, you divide that up, and I guess we're talking. That's something just short of. That's something just short of what, 8,000 or something. I'm doing it in my head. So 8,000 or something a week, on average, that are affected, either killed or wounded. Not that many killed necessarily, but killed or wounded. Now you can divide that up on your phone. You can tell the exact number, but just in my head, that's a lot of folks that are affected. The 1.5 million, the Persian Gulf War, which was a quick strike thing, highly successful. Of course, it looks like, well, not very many people. It's a lot of people. I still say that's a lot of people. That's nearly the size of, that's half the size of Lubbock right there. So 100,000, 150,000 people were affected. Still a lot of people. It's not 1.5 million. But if you remember, George Bush got a lot of negative. I mean, the negative, just constant. And yet Putin has done this. It's 10 times worse. So Vietnam, 3.5 to 4 million. Korea, 3 or 4 million. This is total casualties, killed and wounded. And you will see, by the way, different numbers on all this, because probably, especially in the first world wars. Nobody knew 100% exactly, but so there's a pretty wide range. I mean, 70 to 85 million is that's 15 million, range, and it's just because the things that were happening and the information, and of course that's not just U.S. casualties, that's global casualties. And so some people didn't really, but I mean, that's a lot of people. World War II, 70 to 85 million people affected. Most of those, according to what I read and understand, were deaths. That is a huge thing. And some of you are old enough to, remember some of that. World War I, still a huge number, 37 to 40 million. I just thought you'd be interested. See, our world has gone through some things, haven't we? And still going through some other things. Now, here's why I take a little time to talk about Russia and Ukraine. It's a big deal anyway. It's likely prophetic. But I just want to give you this information. If somebody ever asks you, why should we even care? No matter which side you're on. And there's reasons to be, I guess. Some people have reasons to be on either side, one side or the other. I'm really not trying to ever get into the political aspects of anything. But this is why. Ukraine was historically one of the sort of strongholds of Baptists. Before the beginning of the war, there were 2,300 Baptist churches in Ukraine. There were more Baptist churches in Ukraine than anywhere else in Europe. And that's from historical, some of those were old Baptist churches with roots. And then some were, we have missionaries there. Other Baptist churches have missionaries there. It was an relatively open country, not 100%, but relatively open country. And Baptists, the Lord blessed, and Baptists really got a foothold in the Ukraine. So why do we care about this war? Well, we've already lost 400 of those churches during this war. Now, a church to get started is very difficult. You got to start, you got 2 people, then you get 4 people. Some of you that know the mission program, you know how it is. We support church plants here in our church, and it's a slow process. To lose 400 is that's a blow. And so why do we care? Well, we're losing churches. And now, at the top of this slide, I say we don't wrestle against flesh and blood, which that's from the book of Ephesians 6:12. And what do we wrestle against? It's a spiritual warfare, isn't it? It's the devil fighting. And when you think you're fighting someone, when you think you got it, it's the devil. Paul clearly said, he did not, by the way, you read that verse. I read it again, I think this morning or last night, but just to get it in my mind, he did not mince words and say there's some exceptions here. He was trying to tell you, when there's a conflict, you're wrestling against the devil. That's what he's saying. You don't wrestle against flesh and blood. So the point here is, while God may use this to say, okay, I'm not in favor of war, but I will use it to get the Jews home that are in the area, the devil is using this thing to destroy the outreach of God's word. That the devil is using this war, may have even likely caused this war for that purpose, right? For the purpose if this is the stronghold of Baptists in Ukraine, the strongest group in Europe, that seemed like a pretty good place for somebody just to, with some power to smash. And that's what's going on here. Now, I want to just say, there's other denominations over there as well. And they are also under persecution. If you read about it, priests, pastors, spiritual leaders, not just congregations, not just believers, spiritual leaders of all denominations are greatly persecuted right now. I mean, the Russians are giving them no relief. And so the devil's using this not, so I just give us, we're Baptists, I'm giving you the Baptist numbers, but it's a lot higher than that because there are other churches, by the way, that are leading people to the Lord. Maybe we're not lined up 100% on every doctrine, but they're over there and they're spreading the gospel, leading people to the Lord, and those are under fire as well. I give you all that to say, I hope you're praying for the situation, and we do care what happens. We do want the fighting to stop. We do want, I'm not saying what ought to happen to where the lines ought to be drawn and this and that, but some people say, why, and I'm not saying we should just give billions of dollars to fund an endless war. I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying we would like it to stop because it is hurting the furtherance of the gospel. And so I just wanted to bring that up. Now, I got one more topic, and we're going to get into the lesson. I didn't talk about this. This happened July 28th to 30th, and that was right around the time that, well, anyway, so I didn't talk about it at the time. I'm sort of getting caught up on a couple things. I wanted to make a comment on the UN conference that was recently held. This was a conference on the two-state solution. I mean, you just can't, the idea just does not seem to die. This was in New York City, 28th through the 30th. There is a full UN General Assembly in September. I don't know what's all going to happen there, but you can be 100% sure that this topic is going to be brought up. But this specific two-day conference, it was all about Israel. And of course, this came from the United Nations. This is on their website. Israeli-Palestinian conflict at a breaking point urges push for a two-state solution. Of course, we've been studying, we're in Genesis, Israel, Palestine, Jacob and Esau, struggling since the womb, right? And still struggling in 2025. And do we read anywhere that a two-state solution would solve? No. We don't read that at all, do we? It's going to keep going. It has been going through the thread of history since in the womb, and it continues on. Nobody wants, now, I'm not a proponent of the fighting. Nobody wants them to fight, but I'm just saying I'm just saying a two-state solution is not the reason, and there's a lot of reasons it's not the reason. One thing is, if you just want to take a practical approach at this, in 1985, George W. Bush brokered an agreement between Gaza, the Palestinians, and Israel, and literally moved every Jew out of there against their will. Some of them lived down there for a long time against their will, and moved and said, okay, we're going to make this area fully under control of somebody else. So there was a de facto two-state solution right there. And of course, what's happened? Violence, just because you draw a line, say this is yours and this is not, it didn't work, did it? And it will not work again. There's no reason to think that it will. And and the problem I have with it, just spiritually, is God has drawn the boundaries for Israel. And anything or anyone that decides, no, I don't want that to be the boundaries. We're going to see Isaac here in just a minute. Isaac's going to get on the wrong side of God, and he's going to shake. He's going to be worried about that, and that's not a good place to be. Folks that are giving up land that God gave to Israel are on the wrong side of the fence here. And so that's my kind of problem with it. The meeting was co-chaired by France and Saudi Arabia. Saudi tries to, France, no surprise. But 160 nations went. Even they let some Palestinians come in and be a part of that delegation. The U.S. did not attend, and I was glad about that. We didn't even show up. Israel did not attend either. Saudi, though, they say they want relations with Israel and so forth. Remember, I'm going to show you in the next chapter. You can read about it, and I think we've read the verse before. But Esau married into Ishmael's family. He married some wives from Ishmael. And he married some wives from the Canaanites as well. But we know about Ishmael, and that's Saudi Arabia. And so are they going to be ultimately, are they going to be a friend of Israel or not? That is the question. But there's reason to wonder about that question. They did do one thing. I'm going to give credit where credit's due. They did do one thing, and that is all 22 of the Arab League nations signed a declaration against Hamas. And so that was something that happened and worth mentioning. But France and others have said that they're going to announce their support for a two-state solution at the September meeting. The UK says they're going to also do the same if Israel doesn't pull out of Gaza and work toward a two-state solution. That meeting in September is probably going to be quite a fiasco, I would say, right here in the U.S. So that was the meeting now, what I say, July 28th through the 30th. So we've talked about Russia, and we talked about this UN meeting, July 28th through the 30th. So just for what this is worth, on July 30th, 2025, one of the strongest earthquakes this earth has ever seen happen in Russia, 8.8. That probably, I don't guess, is the strongest ever recorded, but it is one of the strongest. The result, now that's not my sentence. That's what is recorded to have come out of that earthquake. The Russian coastline has been changed. In other words, Russia lost land in that earthquake. Now, just think about that a minute. If I'm Putin and I'm going down trying to take land, right, because I want to change my borders, and it's affecting God's business, which we've seen that it is, right? It's affecting God's business. Next thing you know, one of the strongest earthquakes ever recorded happens and reshapes my coastline. I lose land from God himself. Would I want to think about that just a minute? Because that's what happened. Not only that, there's this particular volcano right here. So when that earthquake happened, you read about in the Bible that when something, happens, it triggers some other volcanoes or something like that. And that's what happened, triggered a bunch of volcanoes. This particular one had been dormant for 600 years. And it woke up. Well, that's something, isn't it? I think it is. This is just FYI. The thing, spread all over the Pacific, all the way to the U.S. And we had ourselves been, Jeremy and I, as you know, did a prophecy conference in Oregon. And we went out a few days early with our families just because we'd never been really to the redwoods and just to see. And so we took a few days vacation just beforehand. And we went to Crescent City, California. And we got out of there, and we'd been back a week or two, whatever it was. And Crescent City received $1 million, which is not a huge number in damage kind of dollars today, but still a big number to me. They received about $1 million in damage, but I just the main thing is what happened to Russia. The meeting started on the 28th, and it was right in there, that 28 to the 30th, that in fact the damage happened on the West Coast. If you look at the weather and the stuff that happened, you remember I've showed you some of these things that we know are not coincidences, that when U.S. and other countries kind of pick on Israel, some things happen. And on the 28th, there was, not a major event, because I think the UN would consider what they did was not a major event. They didn't make any declaration, any war. They just talked about it. It was kind of like God was saying, yeah, okay, wait a second here. And it's interesting, in our whole country, something was happening. There was a damaging wind event in the Midwest, significant and widespread. That's in the upper Midwest. In the lower Midwest, they had flash floods. In the east and south, in kind of the mid-south region, major heat wave you heard about, and wildfires in the west, wildfire warnings at least in the west. So all of our country, and of course the tsunami had hit to a certain extent there in the west, all of our country, things happened right there on that day. And so in September, I think they're going to have that UN meeting, by the way, for whatever this is worth, maybe nothing. And I'm not 100% sure of the dates. I think it's going to be on the date or the time period of the Feast of Trumpets. Whether that means anything or not, I don't know. Wouldn't say it does. Just stating the facts, and we'll watch and see. But I know this: God's true to His word, and we know which side we want to be on. So let's look at some things that a little bit relate to it. Some of it does, some of it doesn't quite. In chapter 27 of the book of Genesis, we got a little ways last week. Genesis 27, and we'll try to get a little bit further down this thing, because I don't want to repeat everything I repeated last week. I'm just going to summarize the first few verses and kind of get us into it. Isaac's now 100 years old as we open the chapter. Isaac knows that it's going to be Jacob that's going to get the blessing and have the birthright. God had announced that. The elder, which is Esau, is going to serve the younger. God had told him that. God had told Rebekah, and I'm sure Isaac knew, that in fact Jacob was going to be stronger than Esau. That's happened, by the way. Jacob is stronger than Esau, if you look at it. The Bible came true, everything true. And yet and so the birthright sale had already happened to Jacob, but then there's this blessing. It's kind of a two-part thing, this blessing. And for some reason, Isaac decided, I like Esau. You know, he's a man of the field. And I'd like to have a little, and I like to have a little of his venison. I'm going to go ahead and bless Esau. Jacob's got the physical stuff. He's got the portion we talked about last week, but I am going to just give the blessing to Esau. So he's directly working against God here. Well, Rebekah hears it. Look at verse 5. Rebekah's wife, Isaac, she heard when Isaac spoke to Esau, his son. Read it again. Esau went to the field to hunt for venison and to bring it. So Rebekah hears Isaac when he tells Esau to go get the venison for the blessing. And this time of blessing, was a kind of a ceremonial thing generally. And it's strange that Isaac didn't talk to Rebekah and they get a little deal together. But Isaac was doing this, I guess, kind of, undercover. And but Rebekah hears it. And just like that, now the clock's ticking, because Esau's out there hunting, right? And she comes up with this scheme. Look at verse 6. And Rebekah spake unto Jacob her son, saying, Behold, I heard thy father speak unto Esau thy brother, saying, Bring me venison and make me savory meat, that I may eat and bless thee before the Lord, before my death. Now, isn't it ironic? Sometimes we read this. I talked about this a minute last week. Read it so fast we can lose our perspective. That's why the Lord asks us to meditate on His Word, doesn't He? Think about it. Isn't there something in that verse that we ought to think about just a little bit? Isaac is clearly on the wrong side of the fence against God on this thing, and yet, what is he going to do? I'm going to bless you before the Lord. Do you think that prayer is going to get anywhere anyway? See what I mean? just a point. Verse 8, Now therefore, my son, obey my voice according to that which I command thee. This is Rebekah to Jacob. Go now to the flock. Fetch me from thence 2 good kids of the goats, and I will make them savory meat for thy father, such as he loveth. And thou shalt bring it to thy father, that he may eat, and that he may bless thee before his death. Now we read that quick several times. Everybody knows that, and we think, well, But there's something there too. I mean, these are goats, not deer. I mean, I don't know how much a difference there is in taste, and maybe it's savory enough. I guess it's savory enough that she thinks Isaac would not be able to tell the difference. And as far as we know, he couldn't. He's never complained about the food here, did he? Now, so look at Jacob's answer, though. By the way, did God need Rebekah's help here? Did God depend on Rebekah in order to make sure that Jacob got the blessing? No. No. There's going to be some lies told here. I mean, this right here is a little bit deceitful, isn't it? Yeah, it's quite a scheme they've got going. Jacob's about to come in and lie to his father a few times. And you could read this and say, well, you know, God never rebukes them. With God does not publicly rebuke them once. But you know what happens? Because this is the way God works sometimes is, what happened there is Rebekah is going to say, you know, I don't want to lose both of you in a day, Jacob. I don't want Esau to kill you. And Esau's going to be mad at me anyway. I don't want to lose both of you in a day. But in fact, that's what happens. Because she's going to send, we're going to see it in a second, she's going to send Jacob away for safety, for his own safety. And she's never going to see him again. So you can say, well, I don't know that she got any punishment for this crafty scheme, or, you know, and Jacob's lying and all that. Well, you could say that, but in fact, the circumstances of the deal was they never saw each other again. Okay, let's keep going. So there is some consequences, whether we want to understand it or not. Well, look at Jacob, verse 11. Jacob said to Rebekah, his mother, behold, Esau, my brother, is a hairy man, and I'm a smooth man. He says this because because his father Isaac is blind. And he's trying to think this thing out a little bit. And my father peradventure will feel me, and I shall seem to him as a deceiver, and I shall bring a curse upon me and not a blessing. And his mother said unto him, upon me be thy curse, my son, only obey my voice and go and fetch me them. And he went and fetched and brought them to his mother, and his mother made savory meat, such as his father loved. And Rebekah took goodly raiment of her eldest son Esau, which were with her in the house, and put them on Jacob, her younger son. And she put the skins of the kids of the goats upon his hands and upon the smooth of his neck. And she gave the savory meat and the bread which she had prepared into the hand of her son Jacob. And he came unto his father and said, my father. And he said, here am I. Who art thou, my son? Okay, I'm going to stop right there. This is quite a thing. We read it so many times it becomes familiar to us, we forget. But this is quite a deal here, isn't it? She puts Esau's clothes on, because we'll see later, they got a certain smell to them. And I mean, he's a man of the field, okay? Got a certain smell to him. And these are his goodly raiment. So he puts some, you know, for the deal, for the blessing, he dresses up, but it's Esau's clothes and they smell like Esau. And then she gets the skins of these goats and puts it on his hands. I mean, Esau must have been a sight. I look around here today and don't see anybody that would qualify to be Esau. The guy must have looked like a gorilla or something, right? I mean, right? I don't know. But I mean, you're putting goat. I know what a goat looks like, don't you? And you put goat skins on his hands and his neck and stuff. It's quite a thing. And to think you could get by with it, can you just imagine yourself doing this sometimes? When you're meditating on God's word, thinking, you know, I'm going to put these skins on, and you know, wow, what a deal here. And they get all this schemed up, and they're going there, and here he comes. He's got now. So Jacob walks in. I wonder if he's a little bit nervous about the situation. He's all dressed up in Esau's stuff, and he says, "Who am I? Who art thou, my son?" This is the first lie, verse 19. Jacob said to his father, I am Esau, thy firstborn. I've done according to as thou badest me. Arise, I pray thee, sit and eat of my venison, that my soul may bless thee. And Isaac said unto his son, how is it that thou hast found it so quickly, my son? And he, this is the second lie from Jacob, because the Lord thy God brought it to me. It's one thing to lie, it's another thing to get God in on it, right? Right? So that's what he does. Jacob said, and Isaac said to Jacob, come near, I pray thee, that I may feel thee, my son, whether thou be my very son Esau or not. There's going to be twice in this passage that Isaac's going to say, come near, come over here. Probably Jacob was standing as far as he could away, right? You know, probably so. Come over here, come over here. I'm going to check you out here. See if Isaac was already suspecting something, wasn't he? Jacob, verse 22, went near unto Isaac his father, and he felt him and said, this is Isaac's voice, the voice of Isaac's words. The voice is Jacob's voice, but the hands are the hands of Esau. One thing they couldn't fix was the voice, but, verse 23, and he discerned him not, because his hands were hairy as his brother Esau's hands, and so he blessed him. And he said, this is Isaac speaking to Jacob, art thou my very son Esau? And he said, I am. Well, he lied again, didn't he? And he said, bring it near to me. He's still telling him to come, bring it. Well, bring it over here. Bring it near to me, that I will eat, and I will eat of my son's venison, that my soul may bless thee. And he brought it near to him, and he did eat, and brought him wine, and he drank. And his father said unto him, come near now. And I think he set it down and backed up again. Come near now and kiss me, my son. He came near and kissed him, and he smelled the smell of his raiment. See, he had a certain smell of those clothes. And blessed him and said, see, the smell of my son is as the smell of a field, which the Lord hath blessed. Now here's the blessing. So this blessing goes from Isaac to Jacob, not to Esau. And Jacob's name is going to be changed to Israel. He's the father of Israel, right? He's Israel. 12 children he's going to have, which are the 12 tribes of Israel. And then regardless of what you might see on your phone today, this is today's 2025 Israel is this same people in the Bible. So this is the blessing that Israel got right here. Therefore, God give thee of the dew of heaven, and the fatness of the earth, and plenty of corn and wine. Let people serve thee, and nations bow down to thee. Nations bow down to thee. That would give a lot of heartburn to nations in 2025, wouldn't it? Yes. But in fact, and there's some times in the Bible that has happened, right? When Joseph was in, we'll see later, a few weeks, several weeks from now, Joseph is in Egypt. Everybody around in that famine is going to come and bow down to Joseph, aren't they? Those nations, this prophecy has been held true many, many times, going to be held true in the future. And but it didn't take really very long where it was actually came true even in this book here. Nations bow down to thee. Be Lord over thy brethren, and let thy sons, mother's sons, bow down to thee. Wow. Then he says this. Some people think we only find this in Genesis 12:3, but this is part of the blessing and prayer as well. Cursed be every one that curseth thee, and blessed is he that blessed thee. Wow. Isaac meant that for Esau. But who got that was Jacob. And that thing has come true. In fact, this part of it, let people serve thee, and nations bow down to thee. That has and will continue to come true. That's the blessing that came. And God had said that. In fact, Isaac pretty much got that from God himself. Well, let's keep going then, verse 30. It came to pass, as soon as Isaac had made an end of blessing Jacob, Jacob was yet scarce gone out from the presence of Isaac his father, that Esau his brother came in from his hunting. If you made a movie out of this, see, how it would go is Jacob would be there receiving the blessing, Isaac would be giving the blessing, and then they'd show a scene of Esau not only have got shot the deer, but he's getting him all fixed up and cooked up to bring him over. And Jacob would be sitting there sweating, is he going to finish this prayer in time before Esau gets here or not? You know, and there would be a time of great tension. In fact, this is what the Bible's telling us. It happened just in the nick of time that the prayer was finished. Jacob, obviously, he had been, kind of standing back from Esau anyway. He got out of there. He got out of there, and the minute he got out of there, here comes Esau. I mean, Jacob did what he came to do, and he left. When I was in business, I had a sales manager I considered to be the best sales guy, that I ever knew. And he'd tell me sometimes, Mike, when you get the order, you get in your truck and you get out of there. When you make he was just saying, because we were agriculture, so he'd go to somebody's farm or something, and when you get that order, you don't stand around anymore and talk. You don't drink any more coffee. You get that order written down, and because you don't want him to change his mind. You got it, right? And you get in your truck and you go. Well, that's what Jacob, my salesman there, he must have been reading this book chapter right here. This is what Jacob did. He got the prayer, and he was gone. And I mean, just in the nick of time, and in walks Esau. And of course, now the whole thing's going to change, right? He comes in from hunting. Verse 31, and he also had made savory meat, brought it to his father, and said to his father, let my father arise and eat of his son's venison, that thy soul may bless me. And you can imagine Isaac right here. All of the thoughts of Isaac right here. And Isaac his father said to him, who art thou? And he said, I am thy son, thy firstborn Esau. Now I'm sure he recognized his voice, didn't he? And Isaac trembled very exceedingly and said, who? Where is he that hath taken venison and brought it to me? And I've eaten of all before thou camest, and have blessed him, yea, and he shall be blessed. The reason he trembled very exceedingly is because he knew right then, well, I've messed up here. I knew what God wanted to do, and yet I decided I'd fight against God, and I lost. And it got to him. And you noticed here, and you'll see it in the rest of the chapter, Isaac never budges from that place. He knows he was wrong. He got caught. He trembled. It shook him in his soul. And so he just tells Esau, the other guys got blessed. It's over. And Esau's going to protest. We'll read a couple more verses. And Esau's going to protest. Isaac's never going to give in because he knows what just happened to him. He knows. Let me keep going. Verse 34. When Esau heard the words of his father, he cried with a great and exceeding bitter cry, and said unto his father, bless me, even me also, O my father. And he said, thy brother, this is Isaac, thy brother came with subtlety, and hath taken away thy blessing. And he said, is he not rightly named, this is Esau speaking, Jacob? For he hath supplanted me these 2 times. His name is Jacob, or supplanter, or heel catcher. And that's what Esau's saying is, he tripped me up 2 times now. He stole my birthright, and now he stole my blessing. And he said, hast thou not reserved a blessing for me? And Isaac answered and said unto Esau, behold, I've made him thy Lord. Isaac does not back down at this point. I've made him thy Lord. And all his brethren have I given to him for servants, and with corn and wine have I sustained him. And what shall I do now unto thee, my son? And Esau said unto his father, Hast thou but one blessing? My father bless me, even me also, O my father. And Esau lifted up his voice and wept. And Isaac his father answered and said to him, this is what he's going to give Esau. Behold, thy dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth, and of the dew of heaven from above. And by thy sword thou shalt live, and thou shalt serve thy brother. And it shall come to pass, when thou shalt have dominion, thou shalt break his yoke from off thy neck. He says, look, you're going to live off the earth, and by the sword you're going to live. Has that been true? It's been true. Esau has lived by the sword. He's always been fighting. You can look through their history, even when he's settled down from time to time in his own land of Edom. Here come the Nabateans, pushed them back into Israel, and there they were. And of course, then you have the Romans were over them. The Roman thing that spreads. They've been, quote unquote, in this Palestinian thing for a long time as well. They have lived by the sword. Thou shalt, verse 40, live by the sword and serve thy brother. Now he does say there's going to be moments in time when you're going to have dominion and break his yoke, and that has also happened from time to time. In fact, right now you wouldn't say Israel is necessarily over Esau, but they've been connected one way or the other down through history. I'm out of time. Let me just read verse 41, and then the rest of it from verse 42 connects us anyway to the next chapter. So I'll just end with verse 41. And Esau hated Jacob. He hated Jacob because of the blessing wherewith his father blessed him. And Esau said in his heart, the days of mourning for my father are at hand. Then will I slay my brother Jacob. I'll read the first part of verse 42. And the words of Esau, her elder son, were told to Rebekah. He said this in his heart, but at some point he must have said it out loud. The days of mourning for my father are at hand. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to kill my brother Jacob when my father Isaac is, he may pass any time. I wouldn't do that. But when he passed away, I'm going to kill him. So Rebekah hears this, and her plan is Jacob's going to go stay with her brother for a few days till Esau cools off. It's 20 years later before Jacob comes back. He never sees Rebekah again. So that's a kind of a tough story, but God prophesied all this. Everything has come true, hasn't it? Let's pray. Father, thank you for these words. Thank you that your word is true and we can count on it. Lord, we pray that you dismiss us now with your love and bless us in the morning service. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.